Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful 2023 so far. Today we're jumping into your favorite, ProRevenge. Before we start, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. But if you stick around, there just might be some cookies in your near future. Maybe. Alright, our first story today comes to us from Eric Smith 98105. Young firefighter disrespects a lieutenant, so I shame him and get him to quit. Let's jump right in. I'm not sure if this is pro or not, but I got revenge on a douchebag I used to volunteer firefight with. This was the early mid-2000s. I decided to join the local fire department as a volunteer firefighter. I did it for about 5 years and it was great. Training consisted of 3 months of fire training, 2 nights a week and all day Saturday, and then you would go to EMT training, another 3 months of training. It was about a year and I was asked to help train some new recruits. One of the lieutenants, Amy, was a short, middle-aged woman who was so full of fire she could make a grown man cry. One of those people who commands both fear and respect wherever she went. Honestly, a great lieutenant and a great person. When she wasn't being a drill sergeant, she was extremely kind and generous. She would often bake people cakes and treats and deliver them to the various stations in our department. However, in this new academy class that I was asked to help with, there was a cocky kid that we will call Aaron. Aaron talked big during the training and acted like he was the all-American hero, like he was going to be the lead bad butt in Backdraft 2. He performed moderately well in training, but far from the top of class. He gets assigned to Amy's station, which is a pretty quiet station in the department. A few months after he starts, Amy swings by my station one night to say hi. She brings us the motherload cake from Claim Jumper, massive 6-layer cake. She explained that she had treated her crew to a night out at Claim Jumper, which must have cost a lot of money. I think she took out about 8 people and bought a whole cake to top it all off. They had eaten the first 2 layers, so she gave us the remaining 4. We thanked her profusely and she left. Back then, the big social media platform was MySpace, and I decided to look up some of the people in the department to make friends. I came across Aaron's page, and I noticed some photos of him and the rest of his crew at Claim Jumper with Amy. However, when I read the comments, he bragged about how he had purposefully ordered the most expensive dinner, appetizers, and drinks since Amy was buying. He bragged about how he was going to take advantage of her stupidity. This alone pissed me off because she was doing this super nice and generous thing. What an ungrateful, selfish dick. Then I read the rest of his profile. He had videos and memes on his page glorifying himself as a bad butt firefighter, bragging about running into burning buildings and how he was such a hero. He was flirting with girls, blatantly trying to impress them with how brave he is. Bear in mind, he had just graduated from the academy 3 months prior and hadn't even gone to EMT school. He had never been to a house fire, and all he basically did was carry gear for the other fully qualified firefighters. It was too much for me to tolerate. So here is the revenge. I printed off copies of his MySpace page, including his comments about Amy and toxic bragging. I made multiple copies and took them to every station in the department. We all had papers, God I'm old, and a small keyboard at each station to send out text messages. I made an anonymous all-staff page to everyone in the department. I had to keep it brief since I couldn't fit a ton of characters, but I sent out his MySpace info and told everyone about how he treated Amy. Within an hour, Aaron had cleared out his MySpace page of all posts, photos, etc. A couple of days later, he deleted his account. It's a good thing I made so many copies. Immediately after this happened, he stopped coming to volunteer, and a few weeks later, I heard that he had quit. I later talked to Amy and admitted I was the one who sent the page. I told her I hated how he treated her, and she thanked me. She seemed really sad and hurt by what he had done. But being the tough short lady that she was, she quickly got back into being an actual bad butt firefighter. She later started dating and married a fire chief that also helped at the academy. I've lost touch with her since, but I hope she did well. She seemed pretty happy the last time I saw her. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Mortal Glitter. It says, "It doesn't matter what profession you're in. You never take advantage of the sweet lady who kicks butt at her job and bakes for her coworkers. That way lies a keyed car with regular flat tires and unexplained mishaps on the job. He got off light." Another comment about Aaron from down below this story from a user called Porky McRib says, "He seems like the sort of damaged personality that you wouldn't want to have to count on to save your life when battling a fire." I can definitely see that in this case. This kind of person seems like that kind of hero mentality, like they want to be a firebug just so that they can be the hero, but they're not going to be the first one running into that burning building. I can guarantee you that one. Kinda makes me wonder if he went and tried out law enforcement next because Firefighter didn't work out for him. Our next story today comes to us from Dontgiveuptheshoe. Lying and using people? I got you. Let's jump right in. This one needs background to fully understand why I went out of my way for this revenge. My best friend was married for 10 years, with his ex for a total of 13 years. He was absolutely head over heels in love with her like I had never seen before, which I never understood due to her alcohol abuse. She would take it out on him, and when he'd be venting about it, he'd always fall back on, "It's not her, it's the illness." A very respectable and admirable stance on it. Last year, she asked for a divorce because after years of what I would call abuse, he had simply run out of gas. Her reasoning for asking for one? When she got fired for testing positive for weed, he wasn't empathetic enough. He admits he wasn't because it had come on the back of one of her drunken tirades where she told him he was a piece of crap who was always trying to control her, when all he ever tried was to get her away from the booze for the way she treated him when she was drunk. It took him forever to move on from this, with the divorce following shortly after. And earlier this year, after thinking he was moving on, he calls me to come over and he's in a bad way. I arrive and he is absolutely fall down level of drunk, going on that she didn't ask for a divorce for those reasons, that she had really been cheating with several other people. The next morning when he's more coherent, I ask him how he knew. He was cleaning out the spare room and selling and donating stuff he didn't need anymore. And when he went to clear an old tablet, she was still logged on and all of the evidence was there. He gets that out and says he's going back to bed and asks me to lock up when I leave. Before I left, I looked at the tablet. After seeing what I saw, I wanted to find a way to get even with the horrible and conniving woman. So I took pictures of it all and left. When I got home, I started looking up information about these people. Two of them were just normal guys. Whether they knew she was married or not, I don't know. But the third, well, the third comes up as a registered sex offender, still on probation for being such a disgusting pile of crap, and address listed as 123 Lane, City, State. Chomo knew that she was married. I immediately knew what I was gonna do. Chomo didn't live at 123 Lane. Chomo was living with the conniving ex. She made regular posts about their time together. On top of that, she is an avid weed user and has several pew-pews because she enjoys sport shooting. So I go into the state sex offender site and make a report of Chomo not actually living where he's registered, and that Chomo is living in a home with what he has no right to, being a convicted felon and on parole. I include screenshots of the social media posts and all to back it up. I was thinking little would happen, but an inconvenience to their lives. Boy, was I wrong. She broke her typical posts with nothing serious trend on social media yesterday with this gem. "My year can't get any worse. Chomo lost his job, and I'm now facing eviction because I can't afford my rent." So I go on the state court system site to see if it's related, and yes, it was. Chomo was rearrested. She clearly can't post bail or Chomo would be out. The job she took after being fired definitely can't support her lifestyle, so he's probably going back to prison or at least jail, and she's a breath away from being homeless. I don't know if I'd ever tell my best friend I was the one behind this, but he is definitely ecstatic to see a horrible woman and sewer rat get what they deserve. Part of me wants to put up the sex offender registration link and that it's sitting in jail and saying something to the effect of, it's a little more than losing a job, but not wanting to make my best friend's life harder, I'll just let sleeping dogs lie. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Huggies DSC. It says, if you tell him, he may wind up feeling sympathetic towards her and taking her back. Don't give him reason to feel guilt. To him, this was just karma catching up to her and confirmation that she deserves to stay in his past. Yeah, OP, I think this is something you need to take to your grave. It's not something that I would bring up to your friend at all. You helped him out hugely, and that's pretty much all you need to do. One quick suggestion though, and you might want to bring this up with your friend, is that, well, his ex was with a bunch of other people being unfaithful. It's time for your friend to make a doctor's appointment and go in and get tested, because you don't know what kind of filth she was bringing back home. Our next story today comes to us from a deleted account. Stiff me on overtime, cue the long, expensive revenge. Let's jump right in. This happened in the early 2000s when I joined a startup. We agreed on a salary and no paid overtime and an evaluation in 3 months and then annually. Standard stuff mostly. It was a very mediocre salary for the work, but I really liked the work itself, which was extremely interesting and challenging. For me, even if the finances were so-so, I felt I'd learn a lot of skills which would be useful in the future. After 3 years and having 10 decent clients and a bunch of clients trialing and money rolling in, the talk turned to back pay and paid overtime plus compensating for past overtime. At that point, around $50,000 in overtime had been accrued, which is a lot. Legally, it couldn't be back pay, so the talk was always of a discretionary bonus. Now, at this point, everyone is okay with this, myself included, and this was discussed in writing via company emails too, so I felt secure and that no bad will was in play. I felt the company should be able to afford the payment. Equally, I'd happily settle for equity at a discount, which is legally possible there if cash flow was an issue. The discussions about back pay and possible equity now started to drag on, and I was getting irked by this. In the end, I was made an offer of equity, which meant the company valuation was far beyond anything reasonable, in the hundreds of millions, and I'd get a minuscule stake, less than 0.01% of a company with 9 employees and a projected annual turnover of around 2 million. It was an FU of sorts to stiff me out of money, and I didn't want to take that lying down. To say I was furious was an understatement. Anyway, the day he made that offer, I handed in my resignation. This sent the CTO into panic mode because the CEO had refused an updated contract, and I was still on a 1-month notice period, plus I had a lot of untaken paid leave. Basically, it meant I was walking out right then and there. So off I went that very same day, to the shock and surprise of everyone, I guess. The next day, I sent an official registered letter requesting my overtime and back pay and received a negative response, which I followed up with another detailed demand. This was also rejected because the bonus was discretionary and there is no overtime. However, I'd been seeking legal advice and I understood that they don't have a leg to stand on if I am willing to pay for an attorney. As the liability in such matters is firmly and 100% on the employer, I was willing. You need to understand that going to a lawyer was very rare in those parts back then, so companies didn't generally expect this outcome. Things have since changed. When going through the applicable laws with the attorney, I noticed there is a limitation of 7 years. So while my attorney was laying out what to do in order to get me my money in as little as a few weeks, I just asked him, what if we wait until it's 6 years and 11 months after the transgression and then file, demanding interest. I wanted this because the law stated that back pay is due at 9% APR above the base rate, 3.25% at that time, accrued daily for every day past the due date. We're looking at 12 to 12.5% compounded daily APR. The risk is that the company folds in that time, but I decided to take that risk. I sent one final letter stating that I expect all the owed and accrued amounts to date to be paid immediately. Of course, nothing happened. For the next few years, life rolled on. The company did grow and become a known player in the area. When the time came, I found an attorney and started the case. We had copies of all the communications, copies of the registered letters and responses. The back pay demand now, including interest, was $112,000. What I didn't know was that in addition to this, that there are fixed penalties for each instruction to perform uncompensated overtime. The total demand was something like $135,000. To say that the CEO, who was still CEO, lost his crap would be an understatement. I got a very verbally abusive phone call, which I dutifully recorded, as it wasn't completely unexpected, and was added to the filing. The CEO fought or tried to, but when the judge heard the phone call, he took an immediate dim view. Reading through all the communication just put more nails in the defense's coffin. The judge just ruled and instructed the company to pay immediately and without delay, and also ordered the company to pay all my legal costs. They also got a full audit from the Department of Labor. The company paid up a week later. To add insult to injury, the evening of the court's decision, the CEO apparently got very drunk and crashed his car into another vehicle while drunk. He got a DUI conviction and lost his driving license for half a year, and his insurance refused to pay out for the damages to his vehicle, brand new Mercedes S-Class, as he was drunk. All in all, a glorious day. Alright, listeners and watchers of KCC, help me out here, because in the second sentence, they said they agreed on a salary and no overtime, but then they were able to go and get back pay for overtime? That doesn't quite make sense to me. Unless they were in a state or province or country where the overtime is federally regulated, then maybe they could go back and claim it because the contract wouldn't matter, but I'm honestly not completely sure. So I'd like you guys to let me know, because I'm sure some of you know, in the comment section down below. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.